Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. It's Nikki Shelton here with Keeping It Real, and I've got a special guest today. But before I do that, Carrie is not with us. She's actually off today, but I do have a special guest kind of taking her place a little bit. I'm super excited, you guys. This is my son.
Hello.
This is Trey Shelton. He is with Bell and Hammer, and we're going to be talking about curb appeal today. So I brought him in because he has a lot more expertise than I do in building things, making things, fixing things, whatever. And so he's my go-to guy for so much that I have questions on that I do. So I wanted to have kind of help me with this because today we're talking about curb appeal and some of the things that you can do. And these are not going to be like these major expensive items, not always. There could be, but there could be some. I mean, depending on what you want to do with your house. But we'll have another talk about the return on investment or your improvements, home improvements, remodelings and stuff like that. We'll talk about that coming up and bring him back on. But today we're just talking about maybe some of the simpler, smaller things that if you're getting ready to put your house on the market in the winter, how that really compares to the summer and some of the things you can do. So without further ado, here we go. You guys are ready for this? All right. So, you know, when somebody drives by your house to go look at your house, do you know they usually make up their mind in about 7 seconds if they want to see your house?
I didn't know that.
Well, I know, right? Unless you do you probably don't study this stuff, right? So, but you know, seriously, it's a quick imprint. I mean, it's like really quick or judgment. I mean, it's like you go by and it's like, oh, I like it. I don't like it. I like the neighborhood. I don't like the way this looks. It's messy. It looks like this. There's so many things. So, and you know, in winter, summer, everybody knows it's curb appeal, but in winter, think about what the outside environment's like. It's going to be gray, it's going to be dark, it's going to be gloomy and rainy and wet and cold and nasty and just, I absolutely hate winter. Y'all know that about me. So,
That's true.
I know, right? For reals. But you can do some things that make it pop and make it seem warm and inviting. And I just have to go and see what this house is about. And so that's really super well cared for. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So Trayton, I know that you're a general contractor, and I know that landscaping, and this is our first topic here, is not really your expertise area, at least not anymore. You did do landscaping for quite a while though, so I know you can bounce in here and help me out. I have another son named Tiernan who is with Greater Approach, and he could assist you on that. So you can always reach out and get his number from me, but he handles my landscaping. So I usually call him for that, and Trayton's my contractor guy. So anyway, just putting that out there, but Trayton has the experience, so he can help me with this. So some of probably the biggest thing that I see is that you really want to make sure, and I know this from other listings and stuff like that. I mean, I know specifically one, they had this what was that? It's like a composite board or something, right? But it got really, really slippery when it got wet. I mean, and I'm talking about not even rain. I'm talking about just like cold dew moisture in the morning. It would make this little pathway super slippery. So if you add leaves to that, or you add ice to that, or any, wet, it makes it even worse. And that's a big hazard for somebody to fall hurt. So
in the Pacific Northwest, we get a lot of algae. So that gets really slippery. Yeah, moss and algae gets really slippery. All anytime it rains.
So that would be my first suggestion, is making sure that those are really just making sure that you're blowing, you're getting the stuff off there. What else could you do to get rid of, to help so it's not so slick?
You can pressure wash when it's dry. Get some crud cutter. There's a lot of products out there. I wouldn't do anything that's harmful. Personally, I stay away from anything that's harmful to the environment. But there's a lot of organic options out there, and you can add that. You can add a solution, pre-spray all of your driveways and anything that's going to get washed, and then just hit it with a pressure washer. I would say concrete. I wouldn't do wood decks. You're going to want to just use a chemical and a brush, and then just rinse that thoroughly.
Okay. And then for ice and stuff like that, I know being in Nebraska, a lot of times we use like ice or desalters or something. Isn't that what they're called?
Yeah, de-icers.
De-icers, there we go. Not desalters, de-icers. I knew I'm talking about that. But that can also help, especially like we get like 2 or 3 weeks of really like a lot of snow and winter and stuff like that. And if you know it's coming, it's not a bad idea to throw it there because it's going to melt it faster, right?
Yeah, just watch the seasons beforehand. Watch the weather, and then put some ice down right before it snows, and or right before it drops below 0, 32.
Okay. And before we even get into that cold, yucky weather that I despise so much, just saying, fresh mulch. I mean, like kind of like some of the summer stuff too. Fresh mulch, making sure you're pruning your trees at the end of the season so it's nice and crisp and sharp. Adding some like little like, I don't know, there's a ton of cute little like fall plants and stuff, or winter plants, like the cabbage ones and stuff like that just kind of add some pops of colors. Adding that always is kind of a cute or fun idea. What about like gutters?
Ooh, yeah. Getting your gutters clean before the fall, or right after. Like as soon as you get your first leaf fall, it's a good time to get those gutters clean. Especially if you don't have rain guard or things like that. You'll get a lot of clogs and stuff like that can get damaging to your fascia.
So here in the Pacific Northwest, we also have a lot of winds. And so after a storm, there's tons of branches down and stuff like that. Getting somebody out to get that cleaned up. Again, maybe going through the gutters again just to get that cleaned out, because not only does it look kind of unsightly if you're walking in looking at a house and you're thinking, oh, is it being taken care of? Maybe you just had a storm and you really did take care of your house, but you're full of your leaves, or your gutters are full of leaves. Somebody might look and say it's not well maintained. So I think that's a huge one. Okay, let's go ahead to some other little things that you could do that people probably don't think about in the winter, or once it gets like dark out at like 4:00 in the afternoon. It's ridiculous. Anyway, see, I hate winter. This is why I probably will never move to Nebraska again. Anyway, not that I don't love my family and friends there and the hot summers, but yeah, that. Okay, so lighting. Let's talk about, because the MLS system, we have our lock boxes and they start like 7 and go to 9. I think it pops down to like 7 o'clock at night in the winters. But the thing is, though, is that it's still dark. And so you might show up at a house to do a showing and it's dark out. Again, have lights and make sure that it's well lit. Make sure that, it's inviting and it's like you're welcoming, like, nice warm glow light would be beautiful. Kind of like this picture here. Just something that's going to say, yes, come in and it's nice and inviting and check out. Triton, I know you can't do lighting, but I know that your company can refer, or you can help. If that's part of a project, you can definitely do that. Anything you need to add there that I'm not bringing up?
No, just making sure that things are visible, like your mailbox, your numbers on your house, those things as people pull up.
Yeah, the numbers on the house, you guys, there's the coolest ones. One of my neighbors has one around here, but it's like it lights up and it's so easy to see. I love those. I think those are the best. So I would personally, that would be my choice. The other thing that he brought up was the mailbox, though. And, a lot of people forget the mailbox, but you know what? When it's dark out and like our roads are not always super well lit here, you need to be able to see your house number in your mailbox. And that's even for emergency, like, for your firefighters and your policemen, if anybody has to come to your house. So this is a good time to maybe freshen up that paint in your mailbox. If it's painted or if it's all dinged up or rusted out, replace it. And then put some really nice bright reflective light or numbers on it.
Reflectors or if you can get lights, it all helps. It helps everybody, just all your street people coming through.
Yeah, true. Okay. So these are all, again, kind of small things, but important things. The other thing is, we're coming into fall, and I actually kind of don't mind fall as much because I like the pretty colors. So I kind of like fall. But I always think of like really like rusty kind of oranges or like almost a red color. And then you go into winter and you've got red too. Maybe your door's kind of just plain and your front entry's kind of plain. Adding a pop of color kind of like this. I really like the kind of the orangey color though. But adding that pop of color can really make like it's warm and it's inviting, especially if you were to put like a wreath or something like that on the door, just to make it a little bit more cozy and just saying to come on in. And those are pretty easy things that most people do during the season anyway. Again, as we talked about in previous episodes, when we talked about decorating your house during the holidays, you don't want to do too much though, because then it becomes cluttered, or it becomes like, hey, are you moving out or are you staying? So make sure it's very minimal, but those little pops of stuff here and there do add up. Okay, this is where I really need Trayton's help. So these are some of the bigger items, and these are ones that, you know, I mean, we kind of got into them a little bit as we were talking, but you know, like when you, just like in the summer, when you go to somebody's house and you look up on the roof and the roof is full of moss or debris and stuff like that, that's a bad thing. I mean, it's like, oh, that house, maybe we're gonna have issues with the roof. I mean, you know, that's a fair thing. So the roof is probably one of the biggest ones. We do get a lot of moss and we get a lot of stuff on there. How should you maintain your roof? I mean, let's say your roof is in pretty decent condition, but you know, you've got stuff going on up there. I mean, like moss. I'm talking about moss here. What would you do? Because I know that there's a lot of people who do the wrong thing, and I'm like, oh, no, don't do that. What should you not do? Let's start there.
Number one, never pressure wash your roof. It really doesn't matter what kind of material you have there. It's really bad for your roof. It can damage it in so many ways. Even metal roofs, we get, you know, they're fastened down, you know, especially sometimes they'll just be caulked. You know, improper installation sometimes will be the biggest problem. And you'll go up there and pressure wash, and sometimes, you know, it seems like everyone else is doing that, but you could be creating underlying damages that you don't see, and then you can't really get to because it's a metal roof.
Okay, so what should you do? Because I mean, seriously, I just had a client go, oh yeah, we just pressure. I'm going, no, don't do that. Don't do that. What should you do? And I mean, there's really inexpensive things that you can, that, I mean, a homeowner can do. I don't personally like climbing up the roof. I'd rather hire somebody who's trained and skilled and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Always hire a professional.
I would.
You can get injured even on one-story roofs. But a lot of things that we do in the industry is like we have asphalt shingles, we have wood shingles, and metal roofs, and you can treat all those, but you can't pressure wash them. So and if you're treating them, you know, it's not going to get everything. So if you have asphalt or wood shingles, you're going to want to get up there with a brush and scrub, you know, get all the roots of the moss just kind of dealt with, but you're not going to want to go too rough on your roof and damage it. So you got to get the right brushes. That's an important one.
Okay.
Other things you could do is put a zinc strip on top on your ridges, and that'll help reduce how much moss and algae growth you get on your roof. Because the water activates the zinc as it flows down from the top.
Okay. And is it true baking soda, or is it baking soda that if you put baking soda on your roof that it actually kind of kills off the moss and dries it out a little bit? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It turns whenever the water hits it, turns more basic, and the moss will die from that. At least all simple plant life dies from that.
Perfect. Just don't use a pressure washer, please. Okay. So the roof is one of the first ones, because I mean, that's like usually one of the things that people look at when you go into a home. What about the siding? I think that's another kind of big one. And again, there's times that you can do the siding because you tell me about the siding.
Well, again, don't power wash your siding. Soft washing you could do for both. You could do a soft wash on most roofs. You could do a soft wash on siding as well. But good practices are just soft washing the siding. You might have to do a little bit of paint touch-ups, but nothing too major. And then as far as the weatherproof, it's a really big one. A lot of people overlook that. You're going to want to get caulk in all your corners, around your windows, and any seams before the rain starts hitting. We get a lot of calls, a lot of times, just about damage on the siding. It'll get behind the walls and then create mold. And we get a lot of mold up here in the Pacific Northwest, especially in dark places behind your wall where moisture does get trapped. So getting your siding done before the winter and even before the fall, I'd say, is a really handy thing to do.
Perfect.
Great housekeeping.
And and touching up those trims and stuff like that, where maybe the paint's peeling, I think that's a great idea too, because you don't want that wood to get into, or you don't want that water to get into your wood because it's so wet here during the winter and stuff like that. You want to make sure that it stays completely dry. So protecting that investment, I think is great.
Absolutely.
We talked a little bit about outdoor, making sure your pipes and stuff. I mean, we don't get a lot of cold here. It doesn't get crazy cold like it does, but in other places, but it does get cold. And so making sure that, the water, pockets are kind of covered up a little. Spigot, thank you. See, this is why I don't do this. This is why I rely on it.
Yeah, winterizing your pipes. You want to winterize your pipes though, and just get your water out of your pipes before the everything starts freezing. You don't have to do it right away, but as you start watching the temperatures drop, you're gonna want to start just thinking about that. Just that way you can make sure there's no water in your system, and because as water freezes, it expands.
Yes.
Which will damage any kind of irrigation.
And there's a lot of pipes that I heard about that broke this last year during the winter, and they had big damage this beginning of the spring. So really, that's a big one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, an important one too is if you have copper piping, insulating those pipes is also really important. Check your insulation and making sure your copper pipes are well insulated, especially if they're in big garages.
Okay.
Because those will freeze sometimes. Most homes usually people are pretty good about finding that, but if you're not, if you don't see that right away, and it could expand and freeze, you get a leak.
Okay. All right. And then the driveway, that's the other big one, because again, we talked about the walkways and keeping them clear and stuff like that, but sometimes when it gets cold and then it gets warm and then you have cracks, and that's a tripping hazard. What can you do there?
Again, you're gonna just make sure your driveway is pressure washed. There's not too much you can do with cracking.
Can you seal it?
You can seal it. It just depends on how bad your cracks are. I mean, if your cracks are really bad and you have different edges, you're gonna want to make sure that there's a bigger process involved. But if there's small cracks, you can usually seal those pretty well. Perfect.
Okay, so you guys, and then this is, I just want to thank you for coming, obviously, today, because this has been super helpful, and just kind of talking about this. And I think it gives people a lot of ideas that, there is a lot you can do, even though it's dark and gloomy and yucky and disgusting outside. But Trayton, I want to say thank you so much for coming, and I definitely appreciate you being here. And you guys, Trayton, when is a good, if you're doing some of this stuff, like you're trying to, get your home ready, let's say for the beginning of the year, or even if it's this fall, when should you start jumping in? Because I know, getting a contract in the summer is almost impossible. It's so difficult sometimes. So what would be a good time to reach you?
I definitely plan ahead. If you're going to plan any project, I would say give yourself a couple months ahead of time, just to kind of make sure you can get more quotes as well. We always encourage in our company to get at least 2 or 3 quotes just to compare. But it's a good time, I would say, to get a hold of a contractor. If you're doing the project during the summer, I would say start contacting people around the spring. And if you're doing work, if you want to do work in the fall and winter, you usually have a little bit leeway, I would say, just because a lot more contractors have a freer schedule during those months. Mm-hmm. But still, definitely plan ahead and give them a call ahead of time. Plan out your projects ahead of time, I'd say.
Yeah, and then obviously if you want to do, you have a bunch of stuff that needs to be on the inside, now would be a great time to give you a call, in my opinion, because it's starting to slow down a little bit. You can get somebody in, they can do some of the repairs inside that maybe need to be done, and maybe not right this minute, but maybe a month or 2 down the line. But for stuff outside, this would be a fabulous time. Before all the bad rains start, they're starting already, you guys.
But it's good. Usually when it rains, the projects can get more expensive. So during a dry spell would be usually encouraged for most contractors.
Yeah, because think about if you painted out in the rain, it would get wet and then just kind of run off. So you'd probably do a lot more protection, a lot more prep work, and all that stuff. So plan for it now, yes?
Yep.
Okay. And if you want to do outside stuff, if you have inside things going on, you got Bellenhammer's number up right now. Again, this is my son Trayton, and his partner Bryce is his other owner, and their phone number is 360-710-0409. Give them a call. They will help out. Like I said, Carrie unfortunately is not here today. She'll be back next week. But we can help you with the real estate needs, lender or real estate person, we're here to always help. Thanks for reaching out, and we will see you next time, next place. See you soon.
Bye-bye.